Did Cyberpunk lie to us? Did CDPR lie to us? No, I don't think so, but Johnny Silverhand may have. Players may not even be entirely sure what I'm talking about, and even I didn't know until I did a deep dive in Cyberpunk lore myself. For any new players or players unfamiliar, there's a collection of books regarding Cyberpunk lore dating back to the 90s, and there's even a tabletop RPG of the game. Now, I acknowledge that this may be hilarious to some people who already knew this, but I simply played 2077 completely blind and fell in love with the world, characters, and story. However, much to my surprise, I did not expect there to be so much lore and the amount of pure passion built into this world. I thought the furthest back the lore went was 2023, when Johnny originally nuked Arasaka HQ. And even more to my surprise, that entire sequence of the game left out massive plot points I feel should have been included, but they simply weren't. Let me explain. To put the full incident into context, a plan was made to get Arasaka out of Night City after years and years of essentially ruling over the citizens of NC. In the game, we are placed in the shoes of Keanu Reeves' character, Johnny Silverhand. We are paired with a netrunner named Spider Murphy, Shaitan, and Rogue in an attempt to rid NC of the corporation's iron grip. We fly directly to Arasaka, land on the roof, and take out the reinforcements. We make our way into the tower, and when seemingly completing our objective, Johnny had one final task.
Not done yet. Still need to feed this to their subnet.
Fucking knew it! This was never about corporate colonialism. This was about your groupie output, wasn't it?
No, you wouldn't understand, Rogue.
Giving you 4 fucking minutes. Chopper's not gonna wait 1 sec longer.
He told Rogue, and upon hearing this, she was immediately frustrated but let Johnny do what he needed to. Johnny fled deeper into Arasaka Tower, and upon completing what he needed to do, he was discovered by Atom Smasher and taken down very easily. Keep that in mind, it is very important for later. However, the game cuts and we see Johnny running to the roof with Rogue. When trying to escape onto the helicopter, Johnny was shot down and his crew was forced to flee. He was laying down looking up while Smasher finished the job, and I'm sure most players know the rest. He was taken down by Arasaka, took the blame for the nuke, his soul was erased, yada yada, you get my point. What most people do not know is that this is actually not at all how these events played out. This fact is even alluded to but glossed over with Alt when she tells us that the events of Arasaka Tower did not play out the way Johnny may have perceived it.
Your death wasn't Johnny's fault.
How could you know?
Seen you in his memories. It was an accident.
What you saw was his subjective view of what happened. A warped account of events he locked away in his subconscious and replayed time and again. It bears no resemblance to the truth.
Now, this may come as a shock, considering Johnny was typically ruthless in his approach to V at first, so he'd have no reason to lie about the situation. But upon closer examination of Johnny as a character and the Cyberpunk lore as a whole, things start to become a bit more clear. See, from the moment we meet Johnny, for lack of a better word, he comes off as a bit of an asshole. He doesn't like us, he doesn't know why he's back. He even tells us to all F4 from our lives after we're struggling to take the pills that Misty gave us. In fact, it's not even until halfway through the game that Johnny actually starts to warm up to us. Even after the interrogation with Hellman, which is a few hours deep into the main story, Johnny tells us that no matter what, he's going to take down Arasaka, and if he has to take our body, he will.
Saw them transform Night City into a machine fueled by people's crushed spirits, broken dreams, and empty pockets. Corps have long controlled our lives, taken lots, and now they're after our souls.
Might be right. Can't really argue with you there.
V, I've declared war not because capitalism's a thorn in my side or out of nostalgia for an America gone by. This war's a people's war against a system that spiraled out of our control. It's a war against the fucking forces of entropy. Understand? Do whatever it takes to stop them, defeat them, gut them. If I gotta kill, I'll kill. If I need your body, I'll fucking take it.
Throughout the story itself, Johnny just also has this slight edge to him that comes off as a bit selfish and self-righteous, and just all around someone who's out to achieve only what he wants to do. Of course, he comes to care for us, he cares for Alt and Rogue, and all around does have a kind heart, but he's not by any means a saint. On January 1st, 1997, there was a book released called Firestorm Shockwave: The Fourth Corporate War, Book 2. Now, the title itself is self-explanatory. It covers the entire Fourth Corporate War between every major corporation within the cyberpunk world with regard to Arasaka, Militech, and so on. Now, the book itself isn't too lengthy, but is pretty beefy in terms of world building, so I won't be going over everything, but it reveals a massive plot point that isn't even slightly touched on in this game. The assault on Arasaka was positioned as a plan made and led by Johnny Silverhand, and to some players as revenge for what Arasaka did to Alt. However, that was a lie. The assault was actually led by Morgan Blackhand, and Johnny was just a soldier. Not only that, the assault wasn't even Johnny's idea. And this is actually where I find Johnny's character to be one of the best written roles I've seen in a video game up until this point. Now, to the surprise of everyone, Johnny is very anti-corporation and against the status quo of the place he lived in. He dedicates his life to taking them down and resisting against them in any way he possibly can. And during the events of Cyberpunk 2077 and even Phantom Liberty, he shuns V multiple times for any corporal-like decision they made, and even guided the player away in some cases when the opportunity rose to work with a corporation. The idea of Johnny Silverhand is fundamentally against any system not meant to help the common person, but to make a profit from them. But for all that, the reality of Johnny doesn't align with that ideology, and I think that's a massive part of what makes Johnny one of the most fascinating characters of all time. When you can make a character that is not a straight arrow, that is staggered, that will not have a completely perfect arc, that is a character whose story is worth telling. A character whose most fundamental trait is being human is the best trait that you can give them as a writer. The reason I say this is during the game, we never learn who was really behind the attack on Arasaka. As I said before, it wasn't Johnny's idea. He didn't lead anything. And while Blackhand led the operation, it wasn't even his idea either. No, it wasn't Johnny the Rebel. It wasn't Morgan the Legend. It wasn't even a character that was very notable. It was Militech. Militech brought the idea to Morgan as they knew of his abilities and exploits. Militech organized the assault. Militech was behind every bullet fired, every person slain, every single action committed that day falls almost entirely square on Militech's shoulders. But how does this make Johnny the human character that he is? How does he end up becoming one of the best written characters in recent gaming history and maybe even all of gaming? Remember when I said Johnny's fundamentally against corporations? How he's against the status quo? How he's a rebel for anything and everything that is not doing something that is in the best interest of the common person? This is a man who's supposed to be very principled in the fact that he is unbreakable in his will and his beliefs. But imagine the catalyst for your greatest act of rebellion is in fact the object of which you stand against. What do you do when you learn this? You are plainly blamed for the most and pretty much only direct assault on the biggest corporation in the world, and it is what made you the legend you are. Your name is forever etched into the memories of everyone because of this one act, and yet it was orchestrated by a corporation. The poster child for rebellion's most famous act is a fraud because what he stood against is the very cause of this act against Arasaka. It's never stated whether Johnny knew the truth behind this, as he never explicitly tells us what happened, and his memories of what happened aren't even accurate. But one thing is for certain, he hates when V takes the side of the corpo, and knowing now what I know about his real history, the question must be posed. Is Johnny projecting his insecurity of having worked with a corporation, or does his lack of awareness about the situation fuel his reason to be so against any corporal-like decision V might make? I mean, he continuously judges us for making these decisions, and it seemingly comes from a place of condescension and at the same time a place of worry and concern. We're going to make the same mistake he made all those years ago by siding with the corporation that otherwise wouldn't care about us. This duality perfectly mirrors us as people and individuals, as we all make mistakes and make choices that put us in difficult positions or make us seem like hypocrites. CDPR choosing to purposely leave these things out has its positives, as they portray what Johnny thinks of himself, considering we experience the past through his own eyes rather than a BD or being told the full story from another character. However, there's still something to be said when half of the true story of Arasaka Tower is missing. There's the scene before Johnny dies where Adam Smasher says this to Johnny.
Smasher.
Told you, Johnny boy. Told you I'd end you someday.
And this simply doesn't happen. Whether it's PTSD, Johnny's ego thinking he's Adam's rival, or something else entirely, this too was actually a lie. Adam's true rival wasn't Johnny, but it was in fact Morgan Blackhand. Once again, another misdirection from Johnny and subsequently CDPR. Another thing to note is during the flashback when Johnny is initially trying to escape, wooden doors are blown open, and that is Johnny's original encounter with Adam Smasher. Just before Adam finishes the job, the game cuts to black, and later we see Johnny escaping his way to a helicopter with Rogue, as I described earlier. Obviously, knowing who Adam is now, there's no way Johnny should still be alive long enough to make it to the roof, and lo and behold, there's another scenario in which Johnny again believes he is Morgan Blackhand because Blackhand was the one who experienced that final scene with Adam, not Johnny. All in all, there are many narrative reasons that CDPR told the assault on Arasaka HQ through the lens of Johnny's memories through an already eroding relic, which could also cause the inaccuracies and jumps in memories, as it provides an in-universe reasons for inaccurately portraying what happened. It pushes the idea of Johnny to a place of uncertainty with regard to how he's portrayed in the story. How he goes from this certain, strong but hard-headed rebel to someone who's a bit more human and maybe a bit more flawed than he lets on. Having said that, I still believe CDPR could have benefited from actually showing us in some way what actually happened and still weave Johnny's true nature into that story. Then again, I'm not here to rewrite Cyberpunk's already incredible narrative. I'm not here to criticize or dissect a story's faults, but simply analyze and inform. A deep dive into this lore specifically was probably one of my favorite experiences just because the entire video was about one thing that was missing from the game when there are entire books and games aside from the 2077 iteration. There are a lot of things to analyze, and I'd imagine it'd only get more fun from here. Until then, here's a sneak peek at my next video, and without a doubt, guys, my most important video yet.
He stopped letting me into the restaurant a couple of years ago. He just cut me off cold, and that hurt, you know? And I think that flipped this switch in me where I was like, okay, fuck you, watch this. And I got the shit kicked out of me. And I separated herbs, and I shucked oysters and clams and uni, and I cut myself, and I got garlic and onions and peppers in my fingernails and in my eyes, and my skin was dry and oily at the same time. I had calluses on my fingers from the knives, and my stomach was fucked, and it was everything.